Hello there and a very warm welcome to another edition of Channels Beam. I'm Victor Mathias. Now, the presidential and National Assembly elections have come and gone, with winners returned elected by the Independent National Electoral Commission. And with surprises sprung left, right and center, many have attributed that to the participation of youth in the exercise. Today on the program, we will be looking at how young candidates fared, especially beneficiaries of the Not Too Young to Run Act, as well as look at the prospects of the youth come the governorship and state elections, which is slated for March the 18th. But as always, let's keep you up to speed with what tickled the fancy of social cyberspace in the past week.
It was a sorry sight as a train ran into a BRT bus that crossed the rail track at the PWD junction of Ikeja, Lagos. Nigerians reacted as many were injured, while some lost their lives during the accident. The state governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, his wife, and the wife of the president-elect, amongst many other well-meaning Nigerians, have visited the hospital where the victims were treated. The Lagos state government says so far 6 people lost their lives, 53 discharged, and 43 are still receiving treatment as at Sunday, March the 12th. With the month of March set aside to globally celebrate women, Nigerians were not left behind as they organized various events to celebrate women and preach on this year's theme, #EmbraceEquity. The campaign preached on why equity isn't just a nice-to-have, but a must-have, and focused on why gender equity needs to be part of every society's DNA.
Well, there you go. Those were some of the things that made the headlines in the past week on the social cyberspace. But to begin, or to join us today on the program, we have Hamzat Lawal is joining us from Abuja via Zoom. He's the CEO of Connected Development. Hamzat, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me, Victor.
Indeed, you're welcome. So, I mean, so much happened during the elections, but how did the young people fare? You know, especially, let's even begin with those who, crossed over to the age of, being voted, as well as, having the right to vote as well. Was there any record, of that demographic, either contesting or even, pulling a surprise and going ahead to win an election?
Oh, yes. The 10th National Assembly would see new faces, or most importantly, more younger people, particularly at the House of Representatives, below 35 and even below 30 years across party line. And this is really exciting. And I think this is also inspirational that the work that we have put in as a movement, leading the campaign for age reduction, and then getting this law signed by Mr. President. It's really exciting. It has now created that enabling environment, created that opportunity for young people to actually participate in elective position and actually getting elected into office, without money politics, but, serving their constituency and representing the voices of their constituency.
Yeah, it's good you made mention of money politics. Of course, we all are aware of the cash crunch and the cash scarcity that we're all facing. So what does this mean? Looking at the fact that perhaps you can also argue that these young people don't have that financial wherewithal to go head to head with those who are the money bags, or those in the higher age bracket, to go head to head with them. But we know how the elections played out in the country. We still are facing that cash scarcity. What does this mean? Looking at the fact that this election, went ahead without money being thrown around as was the case previously. All right, we're having a little bit of challenge with the internet of Hamzat, but pretty much it's good he made mention of the fact that, the election saw surprises by young people who are benefiting from the Not Too Young to Run Act that was passed, by the president. And of course, we've seen that it is now happening. Young people are contesting, taking advantage of the act, contesting and even pulling surprises and winning as well. So that's actually a step in the right direction. But he also was making, the reference to the fact that these young people were able to pull the surprises without being able to dole out money. We all know what is going on in the country currently. Of course, we know that there is a cash crunch. There is also the cash scarcity. So pretty much the ability by anyone to even, play that kind of politics was not even an option. But that's how, of course, he is seeing things, how things played out for him. We also saw surprises, with the way the whole exercise went. New parties emerged. It was no longer a two-horse race. This time around, we have more parties. We had more parties pulling off surprises, winning in states that hitherto were not expected or were not called, by pundits that, they would make hay in those states. We saw about 20 states actually have opposition parties, across board taking those states, winning those elections in all of those places. So it's actually been quite an interesting one. We've seen in the House of Representatives also, there's been a host of surprises. The NNPP, the Labour Party also pulled surprises. They won quite a number of seats. So, yes, the election actually was absolutely interesting to watch. But what is more interesting is the fact that a lot of young people actually took advantage of the Not Too Young to Run Act, which was an act that was followed through. Young people came together, stood their ground, went through the National Assembly, held town hall meetings across states, across board, just to ensure that, this right, because if they say when you cross a particular age, you can actually vote, why then can't you be voted for? So young people actually took out their time, pulled resources together, and decided, to push for an act that will also give them the rights, to be voted for. And the president actually assented to that bill, which is now an act. There was a reduction in the age of people to be able to vie for elective positions, right from the presidency to the Senate, to the House of Representatives. There was that reduction, and young people generally in Nigeria rejoiced over this, and now they're taking the bold step, not only to rejoice but also, to put themselves forward, contest.
Absolutely.
Well, there you go. We have Hamzat back. Yes, Hamzat. So I was just reeling over how the struggle went, for the Not Too Young to Run bill then, to be passed, and now we can see that it's coming into fruition. Young people are running, despite not having money. But let me come back again to the question. The fact that money didn't play a role in this election. What does it mean? Does this mean that, those who got elected will be held more accountable than they were previously?
Oh, yes. What this means, and I think first I need to commend Channels Television. And I hope you guys take credit for your role and your support and commitment to youth inclusion and youth participation in politics. Because I remember when we were on the streets campaigning for the Not Too Young to Run bill, Channels Television always shows up. But you don't only show up, you also carry the news and put it on the front burner, shaping narrative and holding policymakers to account in ensuring political inclusion. Yes, what this means is we'll see less of money backs in politics, and we'll see now what we're going to have is a transition where you have politicians and public officials that have capacity, competence, and with good character, with a track record, who have something to offer, particularly the legislative arm of government of the 10th National Assembly, particularly the House of Representatives. And what this also means is we will see less of abandoned projects, and there will be more town hall meetings, there will be more constituency meetings, and particularly citizens can now hold them to account and say, see, we actually casted our vote for you, and we've given you our collective mandate to represent the interests of Nigeria. So yes, Victor, we're going to see more legislators that we can hold to account. In short, interestingly, Victor, and I'll tell you, some of the elected House of Rep members that just collected their certificate of return have called. Some of them have placed a call and say, please, we need feedback and input on what should become the legislative agenda for the 10th House of Representatives. So this also tells you that these people are already, waiting to hit the ground running. They're not just excited that they're going to go to the legislative arm, but they're ready to hit the ground running and wanted to collect feedback from civil society, from activists and people who actually inform, the not young to run law that got them even elected into public office.
Yeah, but I would have been thinking, they would be calling their constituents, to ask for, messages, or things that would shape their performance, in the legislative arm. I understand that, civil society also can play a role in terms of, say perhaps you might have liaised with, their constituents, because of course civil society liaises with a lot of people. So, I mean, I would have expected that, at this point in time, they would now begin to go back home to say, okay, what do we need? I mean, we've campaigned based on this. We have promised to do this, and that for you. So apart from these, what else should we be adding to our, our agenda, so to speak now, when we get there?
Victor, your questions are even tied to, I'm asking myself, were you at the meeting or were you, preview to the conversation we had? Because my first question to them was, so have you gone back home? Have you actually presented your certificate of return? And what are the feedback you've collected from your constituents? And a lot of them are actually back to their various constituents. They're having meetings. But, mind you, there's difference between what they promised that they would do and what they can actually do. Because now reality is setting in. A lot of these politicians had promised heaven and earth. But going into legislative, they only have 3 roles: to provide oversight, to make laws, and to hold the executive accountable. So again, they have to now match what they have promised and the reality of what they can achieve, and also collect feedback. And that's why they place the court. And yes, they're with their constituents, and hopefully they would collect all this feedback and responses from their constituents and would inform what becomes their legislative agenda in the 10th National Assembly. But it's really quite exciting. And I hope that we will continue to make progress, not only for young people, but also for women in politics. And it's really exciting that, beyond just having young people elected, we have more women that got elected in the 2023 national elections.
Well, so it's one lap down and another lap to go. This Saturday, again, Nigerians will be coming out, to vote for their governors as well as state assembly members. What are the prospects for young people and women, of course?
The prospects are good and they're high, because when you look at the trend from 2 weeks ago, coming out of the presidential and national assembly elections, the message and the signal that has sent is there's a power shift. There is that momentum that we want to see new faces, young blood, and more young people, and political integration and inclusion. And I tell people, Victor, these elections that are coming are even much more important than the presidential and the National Assembly. You know why? The people who we're about to elect on Saturday are closer to the grassroots. So they're the representative of the grassroots at the subnational level, because the executive governors are the chief financial officers and chief security officers and the chief executive of the state. The state assembly members are co-representative of various constituencies at the local grassroots level. So, and because of what we've seen with the National Assembly election, we would see more younger people at the State House of Assembly elections as we go on Saturday. I'm really optimistic and excited. And I know that we will even have more numbers of people that would come out. There will be lesser voter apathy, because now what we've seen is that people are engaging, people are taking over their destiny. And most importantly, they're now believing that democracy truly should be integrated, where people's voice and their votes would determine the trajectory of this great country.
Well, I also share in that view, but let me just hold you there for a bit. We need to go on a quick break, and of course, when we come back, we'll look at other, aspects of the election, both the one that was concluded and the one that is going to hold this Saturday. That's in a moment. Please stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. We still have with us Hamzat Lawal joining us via Zoom from Abuja. Well, Hamzat, in all of that you said, in the first half of the show, you talked about, how optimistic you are that young people and even Nigerians in general, would have that feeling, that positive feeling that their votes count, and they will feel optimistic. They look forward to the electoral processes that we've had. So in the past, in the presidential and national assembly elections, I think we had about 24 million votes there, about voters, so to speak. And this time around, like you said, you are hoping that would have more people coming out to vote. So what would be the motivation, for them coming out, apart from the fact that, they have that positive feeling that things are beginning to count, or their votes are beginning to count, and things are beginning to change in a way that the voices of the people will be heard. What other motives do you think would push people to come forward and cast their ballot?
I think one motive is the fact that INEC has integrated the BVAS technology, where they would ensure that overvoting is not done, and this digital accreditation. I think also most important is the fact that young people now understand, and the electorate now understand, that when you don't engage, what you do is you're allowing for a few to decide your own destiny and your future. And yes, Victor, we can argue the numbers of the turnout, and I would critique that number and say that's not actually the true picture of the turnout, because when you look at how INEC fared, with the fact that over 60% of polling units, materials, and personnel did not get there on time, and where women that are pregnant, older people, got disenfranchised because they could not wait till 2 p.m. or even noon before some materials got to some polling unit across the country. But what this has also done is the fact that the feedback and the public criticism and outcry from citizens have sent a signal also to INEC that you need to sit up. You need to also take stock and reflect, looking at the gap, looking at how to fill that gap, and ensuring that you actually deliver on independence, credibility, and efficiency to the Nigerian people. And I think that with that, it serves as a yardstick for citizens to come out, because INEC has also responded and reacted, acknowledging those gaps and saying that the Saturday election would be different in the sense that all the gaps that were experienced, they've put in place measures to ensure the IREV, the BVAS are working in optimal performance, where they've also gone ahead to even done refresher training for their ad hoc staff. So again, this is showing critical feedback that citizens are actually taking ownership of the process. And they're not only, wanting to go cast their ballot, but they're holding the electoral umpire to account to deliver on those promises that was made. And particularly knowing that we invested a lot in the 2022 Electoral Act that was signed by Mr. President, and also that taxpayers' money were invested to INEC to ensure that they deliver on their electoral mandate. So that alone has gone a long way. One, to clean up the system. Two, to also ensure that truly we're integrating technology where people are taking ownership. But now you're seeing more young active participation. In short, let me just even remind us, when the consumer voter registration exercise started, when the collection of permanent voters card was ongoing, it was mostly young people that came out in millions. In short, Victor, do you know that people in diaspora flew back into Nigeria to get registered? They flew back into the country to collect their PVC. And they also came last weekend to cast their ballot. And a lot of them have committed that they're coming this weekend. I know people who had traveled even before last weekend. They had remained in their various locations, waiting peacefully and excitedly to cast their ballot this weekend. So yes, this entire process that we as civil society have played our part, and the media, of course, in rebuilding trust and mobilizing and sensitizing people to take ownership of the process, is yielding positive results.
I'd call that first-class patriotism. I mean, flying back home, to be part of the continual voter, registration, flying back again to pick up your PVC, and also, flying back to do the ultimate, which is to cast, the ballot. But I mean, that's quite commendable. But let me again come back to the whole of the young people who would have won seats and will win seats, come Saturday. So now to you, civil society, is there any mechanism that you've put in place to also, track their performance, measure what they're doing, put on one side what they've promised, and on the other hand, be checking the boxes and say, okay, this has been done. I know you earlier on spoke about, what they've promised, and also now that reality will set in, they might not be able, perhaps, to check some of those boxes. But is there any mechanism that, that you all have put in place to say, okay, let's sit down, let's draw a table midterm and say, what have you done? This is what you've promised. How have you done so far? What are you doing to ensure that, you check more of the boxes, before the completion of the term?
I'm glad you asked that question, Victor. The Not Too Young to Run movement, what we did was, after the law got passed and we got to third majority and Mr. President signed it, what we now did was to put in place what we call the convergence. And in the convergence, what we do is intended people that want to run for office, we give them capacity, skills, and knowledge, and provide that support as a non-partisan movement. And then after election, we now hold another convergence. We say, now you've been elected into office. These are your roles and responsibility. And we also agree on a mechanism to track what they're doing, provide them with the needed support, and also hold them to account, knowing that we cannot roll back on the success that we have achieved. Now that elections, we've done the first leg, and I know the second leg is this weekend. So I believe that the Not Too Young to Run movement would also host another convergence. We also use this avenue for them to network, both at the state level and the national level. Network, share notes, and also collaborate at the both chambers of the legislative arm. So this is something the Not Too Young to Run movement is committing to continue to do. But it's also important to mention that the Not Too Young to Run movement, the leadership team, is transitioning. And just today, I have put in my resignation as one of the leaders of the movement, knowing that I've just turned 35 and I'm no longer a youth, though I'm still young. But we believe that we need to also create a transition where we give power to younger people who are more dynamic and vibrant in their dealings.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow, that's what I'd say shocking to hear. But I mean, like you said, you get to a point where you have to move and allow for those who are younger with dynamic, ideas, innovative ideas, to take over the mantle of leadership. So again, let me just first of all say congratulations, and of course, wish you all the best in the next endeavor that you would pick, which I'm sure, you would succeed. But let's even look at moving forward now, because. As you're resigning, what's next, first of all? But more importantly, would there be some form of guidance for those who will be taking over?
Oh, yes. So the Not Too Young to Run movement leadership team is putting in place as a process where we'll call it a leadership recruitment process. Because what's important is to get people who build on what we have created, but also able to protect what we have done and make it truly institutionalized. So we'll put together, a leadership recruitment process. There will be a public call where, the criteria will be set and interviews will be done. And then we have a new leadership team. And the leadership team is called the National Strategic Team, which is the highest decision-making organ. For us, we're also sending a message that as younger people, nation building should be in the hands of every citizen. So creating an avenue and opportunity for young people to actually contribute their quota to the growth and development of our country using civic space and momentum and movement building like the Not Too Young to Run movement. And I'm really excited that all the leadership team shares this unique vision from the outcome of our retreat in 2019 in Akwa Ibom State. So yes, we would use a model to recruit new leaders and hand over to them in coming weeks and months. And I wish, this team that is working on it success. And thank you for your kind words, Victor. But I think this is also a message to all the leaders, both at the political, particularly even the political space, that we cannot continue to recycle old people and say that people that are younger, people that have knowledge, energy, that want to contribute their quota to go and wait until their time or their turn. I think that it should be intergenerational equity, dialogue, and intergenerational solidarity. And that's what the Not Too Young to Run movement achieved, where we worked with other politicians and younger
Yeah,
activists and advocates and unite the country.
Yeah, I'm very keen about that, intergenerational, conversations and deliberations and all of that. But, I wish we could go on. I'd have to hold you there, and say thank you, of course, for sharing your time and your thoughts with us today on the show. And again, good luck in your future endeavor as you've now resigned from the Not Too Young to Run movement. Hamzat Lawal, CEO at Connected Development. Thanks again.
Thank you, Victor.
You're welcome. Well, that's where we are. And of course, we'd also leave you with the Mosby videos on our YouTube channel in the past week. I'm Victor Matthias. Don't forget to come out again en masse on Saturday to vote for those who would represent you at the state level and also, at the grassroots level. Thank you very much for watching, and bye for now.
You took the chairman of the party.
This week's top 5 videos kicks off with the stance taken by Governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, over the role he played in the outcome of the presidential election results from Rivers State.
Give us back, chairman. He said no. You must have it all because you have won. I said be careful.
It is followed by the ruling of the appeal court on the request by Labour Party to INEC over materials used for the February 25th presidential election. Third spot is taken by position of the tribunal, granting the request of presidential candidates Asiwaju Bola Tinubu and Peter Obi access to electoral material. In second, the protest held in Abuja and led by the presidential candidate of the PDP, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, to the headquarters of INEC.
Not even water has been given to us.
While first position is taken by the complaint of a party agent lamenting the lack of refreshments at the INEC Collation Center in Abuja.
Please make sure that you provide him not only water, but dinner as well.